Hey lovely people, I'm back again and this week I am doing a mythology book haul.
Sophie vlogs.
As I mentioned in my second-hand book haul, mouthful Sophie, but I mentioned that I've been going to a lot of second-hand bookshops lately which have had some really interesting finds, and that's pretty much what this video is. I've sort of managed to stumble across some mythological books that I've been thinking about getting for a while, and just by sheer chance I seem to have stumbled upon them and also just made a couple of new discoveries. So I thought I'd have a quick rundown through them, and if you're also interested in books about mythology, you might want to check some of them out yourself. I know I spend a lot of time on this channel talking about my love of Greek mythology, but I do love just mythology in general, and I really like exploring all of these founding myths and narratives that sort of defined our cultures as we know them, and all of that sort of thing. I really love that. I find it really interesting. First up is the Mabinogion, which I could have just mangled the pronunciation of. I'm terribly sorry. So essentially, they are Welsh mythologies that would have developed through oral storytelling that were then put into manuscript form in the medieval times, so that we now have them today. And I'm super interested to read them. I really like Wales. I live in Bristol, which is just across the bridge from Wales, and I spent a lot of my childhood in there. I am attempting to pick up little bits and pieces of the language, but it's not going super well. So essentially, I'm just really interested to read this and discover a bit more of the mythology of where I live, that sort of thing. So I'll be sure to give it a review and have a chat about it once I'm done. I'm sure I'll have lots and lots to say. And if you have already read this, then do just let me know your thoughts, that sort of thing. I would love to hear them. Next up is the Orkney Saga, and I really hope I've said that right. It's about Orkney. It's a Norse saga, but it's obviously concerned with the British Isles. And I gather it's actually less of sort of stories and more of like it's genuinely like a historical document type thing. I know nothing about this. I'll be honest, I didn't know this existed, except for when I was in the book barn and I spotted it and I thought, ooh, that looks really cool, and so I picked it up for £1. So I know very little about it. I assume it's going to be quite Scandinavian, but it's also about Orkney. I don't really know the history of the time that it is about either, so it should be quite educational. But it's just one that wasn't even on my radar, so if that's the type of thing that interests you, then check it out, really. Linking onto that, another Norse primary text is I bought the Elder Edda. I mistakenly forgot that I already owned this. I haven't read it, but I do own 2 copies now. But this copy is so beautiful that I don't view that as a bad thing. This is poetry, not prose, and it's all about Norse myths and legends. I have previously read the Volsunga Saga, which is another Scandinavian sort of epic. I almost did my dissertation on it, and then I realised I had way too much to say just about the Iliad, and you don't need to introduce another text, Sophie. You never shut up. That was what happened. So, having already read that, I really enjoyed that. I'm really excited to learn more about Norse mythology, because I know basics, but I wouldn't say that I'm particularly massively familiar with the pantheon and the general stories related therewith. So I think this is going to be really interesting to help discover more of that. And it will be nice to read another epic poem again. I do love me some epic poetry. My next book is one I'm not sure if it counts as primary text or if it's a revisioning, but it's Folk Tales of the British Isles, edited by Kevin Crosley Holland, which I assume means that it is a selection of primary stories. First of all, it has fantastic illustrations, which I think are really cute, and I'm very excited. I hope they run through the book. They do run through the book. Most exciting. And also, it's split into different sections. So the first one is fairies, and then you get ones about origins, so like the origins of countries, like the founding myths, and kings and heroes, fabulous beasts, this sort of thing, and I think it's just going to be super interesting. I'm really excited to be able to like dip in and out, pick up a greater understanding of all the different myths that originate from Britain. each little story has like the country that it's from next to it, so that's going to be really interesting to see if there are contradicting stories from, for example, like Wales and Scotland. Do they have contradicting stories for the same thing? That sort of thing, really. I just really love me some folk tales. I'm excited to read some, especially with delightful illustrations. And finally, this is an adaptation, not a primary text, but I also have Arcadian Nights by John Sperling. These are, as the title says, Greek myths reimagined. It focuses specifically on Agamemnon, Theseus, Heracles, Perseus, and Apollo. So John Sperling is essentially revisiting the myths of those particular figures. The book's split into sections, so you have an Agamemnon section, a Theseus section, that sort of thing, and then each section is sort of broken down into smaller sections. He's actually a playwright as well as an author, so I'm interested to see if that's going to play into the way he tells stories and the narrative style he uses, especially if he's using some of the ancient plays as his sort of source material that he's building off of. I know parts of it are going to be just him retelling the story in his own words, but then where there's gaps in our ancient sources, I know he's filled them in himself with his own imaginings and reinterpretations and that sort of thing. So I'm really interested to see what this is like. I've never read anything by John Sperling, and I've never heard of him before. Sorry, John. I'm quite excited to explore this, because it's me. I couldn't go through this entire mythology video without mentioning something Greek mythology based at all. So, but yeah, I also quite like this picture. I don't know if there's illustrations throughout or if it's just a cover, but I think it looks quite nice. And thus ends my little mythology book haul. I'm feeling really pleased with some of these finds, actually. There's some that were premeditated decisions, that were texts that I've been looking out for a while, but most of these were literally just secondhand bookstore finds. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to learn more mythology, and I will definitely be doing, maybe I can do a little roundup video once I've worked my way through them all, but I imagine this is going to take me a while because so many books, so little time. But once again, if you've read any of these, I'd really love to hear your thoughts. I'm really excited about the prospect of them. If you are also a big fan of mythology and have any form of mythology recommendations, I know this has been a lot of primary texts, and I would love recommendations of that, but also just retellings of myths, things inspired by myths. Give me anything, and I'll probably get my hands on it and love it. So yes, I hope you are fantastic. I hope everything is perfectly peachy with you, and I will see you whenever I next see you for something else. That's about as specific as I'm gonna get. Goodbye.